Hi everyone, welcome back to We Students. Today we're doing an episode on how to have sevens in your IB exams since it's IB exam season.
So we asked some of our friends who have gotten sevens on their mocks for these subjects, and you can skip to whichever one you want in order to see 7 minutes to a 7.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah and I take SL Chemistry in the IB program. And as many of you are doing right now, I'm also preparing for the IB exams. So I wanted to make this video to sort of maybe inspire you to start studying, or maybe introduce you to some of my methods of studying, which could potentially help you get a better score on the exam. So what I have done first for every subject, not just chemistry, is create a sort of like master sheets document where I sort of listed all of the relevant topics and subtopics from each subject. So for chemistry, this is really useful, and for all the sort of natural sciences, because they're really clearly divided into subgroups and topics. And I believe in the thing where if you like write everything down and create a sort of study plan, that like half of your work is almost finished. So I sort of have them all listed down, and I have a drop down menu relating to how well I know the relevant theory for that topic, and then another section which is like practice. So it refers to how well I have practiced past papers. So I think this might give you some insight on how I like to sort of structure my routine. Firstly, I focus on taking notes and sort of making sure that I understand the theory. But I find that passive reading just from the book doesn't really help, because not all concepts are equally as difficult for you to understand. So I like to use Revision Village and sort of do like maybe, I don't know, 10 to 20 questions for each relevant topic to like really ensure that I have understood the fundamental concepts. And yeah, this is accompanied sometimes by watching some YouTube videos for topics that are really difficult for me. And I like to sort of use different methods, like some more interactive. And then the main thing is like taking the notes from each section. So this is pertaining to how well I understand the topic, but this is only half of the work that I do for practicing. So later on, when I have ensured that every topic is understood equally as well, I move on to the practice section. And for this, I like to use several resources. Mainly, I like using Revision Village, because I have the access to it from a previous student, from an IB student. I find it really like applicable to the program because it sort of structures the questions like I find them to be structured in many of my tests, and as they have been on past papers. So it makes me feel more confident, like I am actually studying for the test at hand, because sometimes you can really understand the theory of the topic, but the IB style questions are really unique, and you sometimes have to answer according to the mark scheme, because in chemistry it's often really specific and you have to use several keywords to get marks. So this is why the practice section, I believe, is even more important, or equally as important as understanding the theory. And yeah, what I like to do is look at all the past papers. There are some good resources online where you can find them for free. And yeah, sort of solve through all of them. Make sure that what you have answered revolves around this like really similar terminology, or maybe the same terminology as it is included in the mark scheme, because that will actually get you the points. And yeah, just I also think it's really important to have a structured routine every day. So I focus on, of course, I'm not only studying chemistry, so I maybe solve like one chemistry paper per day, or if I want to work more thoroughly in that subject, I focus on it for maybe 3 hours per day and sort of see where my weaknesses lie and focus most on that topic. So as of now, I haven't reached up to the point where I'm solving full past papers, because I have had difficulty with understanding some of the topics. But when I reach that point, I think I will just be solving the past papers, as I said, in order to make sure that all of my topics have both a perfect like theoretical understanding and a practice. So think that pretty much sums up how I'm planning on studying, what I did so far, and it might also help you.
Hello, I take IB history at a higher level, and I want to help you guys figure out how on earth to proceed with studying, because transferring from second year to third year in the IB system is very terrifying when you hear seniors talking about how history is very hard and the tests you have to write 3 essays in 2 hours and etc etc, and it's doable. It's not that it's not, it is hard, but with practice it is very much so doable. And I'm sure you've heard this about every single subject, and I'm sure you've heard that notes are your best friend, and they really are. I'll repeat it just for the sake of repeating, but I want to go into the specifics of each paper. Starting with paper 1, in my history class, we're doing the move to global war in the European history. Paper 1 is more of a source analysis, so not so much studying, but there should be studying nonetheless. The test is structured in a manner where you're provided with 3 different sources. One of which will be like something like a political cartoon or a graph or something like that, and the other 2 will be some forms of an extract from a source, a text extract from a source. Let's say a quote, a speech, an analysis, interpretation of some historian or some article from the time or recent, depending. They want to grade how you're gonna analyze this. The first questions will be regarding what the source is actually about. The first 2 questions, and these are worth minimum points, not exactly something you should focus on. In the first question, it'll ask you something from the text, to say what is the purpose of this text, for example, and you'll have to read the text, outline certain areas. There are 3 possible outcomes, and you're required to say 2. I would say you list all 3, just to be safe. So when you're listing them, do not elaborate on them, just state them with minimal vocabulary, because there's no need. You're not being graded on your explanation here. Same applies with the second question, where you need to give 2 out of 3 again for the political cartoon. Let's say you'll have to analyze it and see like what this means, and what, like, let's say a newspaper means information or something connected to NATO. I remember when I was doing a paper on example, the newspaper was referring to a pact. There will be an OPCVL question. I'm sure you are familiar as NYP students to OPCVL. If you haven't been in the IB program beforehand, OPCVL is basically a form of analysis of the source, where it analyzes the origin, purpose, content, limitations, and values. The question will be phrased in such a manner where the limitations and value, you'll need to find the limitations and values of the origin, purpose, and content of a certain source. And the way I'd go structuring this question would be, I would reply to the value of the origin, 1 sentence, value of the limitation of the origin, 1 sentence, and highlight it would be helpful to highlight these, like the origin, the value, and the purpose, to highlight it in the source. Same goes with the purpose of the source, and be careful not to mix this purpose with the content. The purpose is what the person who's writing it aims to achieve with this text, and the content refers to what sources, let's say, or what information is used to achieve this purpose. And then right before the biggest question, which is an essay and is worth majority of the marks of the test. Funny, I know, but like, not to worry, it's easy and it's all right. It is doable. The next question is referring to, you'll have to do a comparison and contrast to the sources. It'll be worth 6 points, and you would need to do three comparisons, 3 contrasts. I would advise you to find 3 points in the text and say how they're similar. 1 sentence similar, 1 sentence difference, then another point, 1 sentence similar, 1 sentence difference, another point, 1 sentence similar, 1 sentence different. Do not take time explaining. You do not have the time to explain. You can explain in the essay in the end, which is worth 9 points. And in the essay, it'll ask you something related to the sources, and you'll have to use the sources. And this is also where the notes from your class will come in use, because you also have to use your own knowledge. You'll use the sources, and you'll say for and against. It should be around 2 to 3 body paragraphs. Do not overcomplicate it. You do not have the time. State the introduction, define the terms, thesis, then the next paragraph, introduce the first argument supporting, let's say, supported by your own knowledge, supported with the source. Next, contrasting, support it with the sources from the test, and support it with your own knowledge. If you do not have so much of your own knowledge, support the sources with your own knowledge. If you have more knowledge and don't understand the sources, introduce your own knowledge first and then support your knowledge with the sources. Paper 2 and paper 3 are essays. Paper 2 you have to write 2 essays, while paper 3 you have to write 3 essays. That's paper 3 is for higher level students though. For the paper 2 and paper 3, for paper 2 I'm choosing topic 10 and topic 12. That's how my class decided to go about it. Topic 10 being authoritarian states, meaning Japan, China, USSR, Germany, Italy, and we decided to go this route because we felt it would overlap the most with paper 3 and with paper 1. You don't have a lot of time, so again, do not overcomplicate things. Don't skew off topic. Stay on the topic. Topic sentence, supporting, evidence for the supporting, and then contrasting paragraph, evidence for the contrasting paragraph, etc. Many people have advised to do like 2 to 3 paragraphs, but I find it the easiest to do 4 paragraphs because it has the most structure, and structure is a big grade. Paper 3 is very similar to paper 2. The only difference is that paper 3, the questions are very specific. Let's say, discuss 2 forms of policies that supported the consolidation of power of 2 authoritarian states. A possible question. I would go about it by introducing the thesis as to how they did it. Then the first paragraph will be supporting foreign policy. Then the second paragraph will be contrasting that foreign policy and saying the limitations of foreign policy and how it wasn't. Then the next paragraph will be supporting economic policy. And then the fourth paragraph will be going against the economic policy. And then conclusion, you restate the thesis. Do not introduce new information. And yeah. And finally, the main trick and tip that I can give for reaching a 7 is to not to rely on historiographical opinions of historians, but to use them, because not only does that show your own knowledge and your own initiative in researching about history and everything, but when you look at the grading scheme, it says you can't get higher than a 5 if you do not quote a historian. A very common historian, for example, is A.G.P. Taylor. This is one I would advise you because he's mentioned a lot in the history IB textbooks, and he provides a revisionist view, which is also very useful. Revisionist and orthodox. Orthodox is more traditionalist and first-hand evidence. And the revisionism reviews the orthodox opinion and says, like, hold up, you didn't consider this. Don't elaborate and don't rely your argument on their quote. Just support your argument with their quote. You could say in the second last sentence, this is seen when A.G.P. Taylor says da-da-da-da-da. Again, focus on your notes. Have it organized, do not skew off topic. I keep on repeating because you will not only waste time, but you will lose points for organization, and you will also not respond to the question. People who grade IB history and the criteria for IB history are always so double-sided, and you can interpret it in any way you want. That's why I try to gain points for an organization and such small things that you can. Is traces of evil. Here you can view many, you can also find past papers here, and you can also view how an IB professor who's created this would go about replying to different prompts of every single year, and that's another way I'd recommend preparing, is by going through the past papers. Like, learn the material first and then go through the past papers and practice replying to the essays, and go back and read it and say, like, okay, first of all, is this organized? Second of all, did I include information? The main thing you'd focus on, and which is a very valid thing to focus on, is learning the information. And these traces of evil essays, they're not what you're actually meant to write. These are just outlines, and you should use them as outlines. There are also some quotes from historians which you could find useful if you see them overlapping. It's very useful to get quotes from historians that overlap with different topics, so you don't have to memorize a million jillion quotes. And I think that about sums it. I wish you luck, and I hope this helps. Bye.
Hi. If you're aiming for a 7 in IB Economics, this 7-minute guide will help you actually realize that goal. So I have 5 key aspects that I want to break down for you, 5 core areas that would help you actually achieve that grade, starting from understanding concepts, second with mastering diagrams, third writing strong evaluations, and then practicing past papers. And lastly, staying consistent. First things first, understand. Don't memorize anything. IB economics isn't just about throwing definitions. It's about actually understanding how the economy works and being able to explain it clearly. For example, when you're learning about supply and demand, don't just memorize the curves. Think about real world examples. Why do gas prices spike during holidays? Why does a price ceiling on bread cause shortages? I would say the only thing that you need to memorize is that negative externalities, the curve always goes to the left. Positive externalities, the curve always goes to the right. And yeah, if you connect the theories to things that happen around you, news, inflation, housing markets, even TikTok trends that affect consumption, you'll remember them better and actually enjoy studying econ. So use the real world to build your understanding. IB loves application. Second, diagrams. Diagrams are your best friend. If you want a 7, your diagram should be perfect. So clean, well labeled, and accurate. Every diagram should have a clear title, properly labeled axis, and curves, equilibrium points, arrows showing shifts, and shadings for the consumer surplus or deadweight loss or tax revenue or whatever needs shading. So practice drawing them first, because in paper 1 you need to draw diagrams by hand under pressure. Set the timer and practice sketching them with the correct labels, for example, in under 2 minutes. And also know when to use them. Don't just throw in a diagram for the sake of it. Third thing would be master the structure of the essays. For people that are already in IB, or for those that will join it, you should know that economics is divided in 3 parts, 3 sections: microeconomics, macroeconomics, and lastly global economics. And if you're doing the IB exams, you would know that you have, for standard level, paper 1 and paper 2, and if you're HL, you would also have paper 3. You need to master the structure of the essays. In paper 1, the 10 and 15 mark questions make up a big chunk of your grade. If you want a 7, you need to nail the essay structure. You need to know that there's an intro, body paragraph, and you need to use the DED technique, D-E, A-D. D, define the concept. E, explain it clearly. A, apply to the real world context. And D, again, for discussing or evaluating whatever your question is. And for 10 markers, your evaluation should be present, but more concise, if you get what I mean. And fourth thing is to practice past papers and review them smartly, most importantly, because past papers are game changers. The IB always recycles questions from the past, not always, usually. Once you've done enough past papers, you'll actually notice a pattern, especially in paper 1. There's questions like, explain how subsidy affects X, the market for X, evaluate the effectiveness of price ceilings or price floors, discuss the 2 policies to reduce unemployment, which unemployment is worse. So what should you do is practice writing timed answers again to common question types, and to use the IB economics mark schemes to self-mark and see how your answers align with the actual question. And last thing, stay consistent and do your IAs before you need to start learning about the IB exams. Your IA needs to boost your score. Although it's only 20% of the final grade, you need to use it to your advantage. You need to choose articles based on the 3 sections, as I mentioned earlier. 1 article for micro, 1 for macro, and 1 for global. And you need to link it to like your current topics that you're learning in IB economics, for example, inflation or unemployment or environmental taxes or whatever you want. And they need to have a clear structure. First, it's the introduction with the article summary and the key terms. explanation with diagrams, real world relevance, and you don't need to forget to bold the key term anytime you have it. And lastly, solid evaluation. And as for consistency, don't cram before exams. You'll have a lot, as I said, in your plate. So it's better to start them earlier and finish them up and actually get the feedback needed from the teacher so you can actually score a good grade. IB economics is best tackled usually when you learn consistently. It doesn't have to be 2 hours of studying. It could be like 20-30 minutes a week just to review topics, draw diagrams, test yourself with flashcards or mini quiz questions, and use resources like YouTube channels or IB Economics revision notes, or watch Jacob Clifford, usually the most recommended for IB students. And lastly, study with groups where you can discuss real life examples. That would really help, as you would actually have an interaction with someone and talk about things that should make sense. No shade to IB physics or IB math. Anyway, to sum it up, getting a 7 in IB economics isn't hard, isn't about being a genius. You just need to stay consistent and understand the world and apply your knowledge. And that's it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I've been chosen by we students to talk about a segment they hold, how to get a 7 in IB in under 7 minutes. Today I've been chosen as a representative of IB psychology and how I use different methods to study in order to get 7s in IB psychology. So I have 2 methods I use to study in order to prepare for my exams. First is regularly going over my notes. So I have a whole Google Doc of notes, approximately like 40-ish pages, which I go over, and I created this document at the beginning of my junior year in high school, or at the beginning of the IB diploma program, and it's a collection of sociocultural, biological, cognitive, and every key study analyzed in detail. But the problem with this Google Doc is that it's not very organized. It's scattered and without any structure. So what I like to do is, is created a separate document which is all of my notes organized for sociocultural, cognitive, biological, health psychology, abnormal, and research methods, as well as ethical considerations which you will need for your main IB exams. So to start off, for sociocultural, I talk about conformity, I talk about key studies, I talk about social identity theory. In social identity theory, what is social categorization, social identification, social comparison, and then for each section of sociocultural approach, I've added a key study in order for me to prepare better for the exams. The second, section of this Google document for cognitive approach, there's cognitive processing, multi-store memory model, the Atkinson and Schiff study, if you know that, serial positioning effects, key studies revolving around that. Next is biological approach for the brain, the behavior. There's health psychology, there's abnormal psychology, defining it, and different approaches to learning and diving into abnormal psychology. Next I want to talk about is the research methods, or theories, the sampling techniques. There's different types of sampling techniques you can use: self-selected, opportunity, random stratified, purpose, as well as snowball. I won't dive into depths of that. There's also sampling bias, which you will need to explain better if it lands on your IB exams, as well as ethical considerations. These all are for HL psychology. Next I want to talk about is how to prepare for the actual exams. I have a separate document called exam prep, So, short. So to summarize, it's basically outlines what to do, what to use, what to write on the actual exam. So, for example, the SAQ, I have outlines for the SAQ, each paragraph what to write. For example, the first paragraph, general knowledge, like explaining the key terms, meaning the command terms. The second paragraph, the AMPRC method, so AIM method, procedure results conclusion, and then linking to the study using the command term in the last paragraph. So, for example, I'm starting my SAQ. In this SAQ, I will explain how testosterone influences aggression using DABs. Hormones are that, testosterone is that, aggressiveness is that, and so on and so forth. So for the ERQ, I've done hundreds of ERQs throughout my IB journey, but I still sometimes forget key points, key discussions, key arguments. So I always, before doing an ERQ, I have to go over this Google document, and no rushing, no skimming, just full on reading and absorbing as much memory as possible, as much information as possible. So what I have done is the introduction. In this ERQ, I will the command term, the ERQ concept, using 1 or 2 studies, depending on, you can use 3 studies if you want, and the general knowledge, explaining key terms and meeting the command term. The first study, aim, method, procedure, results, conclusion, and evaluation. And same with the second study. And for evaluation, always mention one strength and one weakness. It will give you so much more credibility and points. The command term, discussion and evaluation points for both and against. And the conclusion, one single sentence. For each, let's say, approach, I've done like combinations of studies I can use, so I'm not gonna learn every like 100 studies that are on in thinking, but I've done combinations which can be used for multiple ACQs and ERQ questions, which is a lot of which is saving me a lot of time and nerves when it comes to learning and processing everything that's for the IB. Also, I wanted to mention, since I am an HL psychology student, I have done a third final document, which is for paper 3. Paper 3 is a shorter version of the IB exam, which is basically question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. There's different research methods I have gathered throughout for qualitative research methods, like observations, naturalist, different types of observations. And for qualitative research methods, there are also types of interviews. Qualitative research methods also include different types of experiments, field experiments. For qualitative sampling, I have quota sampling, theoretical sampling, as well as for quantitative sampling methods, I have random sampling, stratified, opportunity, and self-selected. And there's alternative or additional research methods like surveys, focus group interviews, semi-structured interviews, and there are also ethics applied to paper 3, which you must know, like informed consent, protection from harm, debriefing, and there's also credibility for qualitative or trustworthiness, like method triangulation, data triangulation, research triangulation. There's for qualitative, there's also reducing researcher and participant bias, and for qualitative there is reducing, and for quantitative there is also controlling confounding variables. So you will need to know every single one of these key concepts while writing paper 3. And for paper 3, there is a study done, which you'll have to read and analyze and know all of these key elements and answer accordingly the questions that will follow, depending on which set of paper 3 questions you will receive. Thank you.
Hi everyone, if you're watching this part of the video, that means that you want to get an IB7 in business management, and I have just the tips for you. I am currently self-studying IB Business Management SL because I didn't study a thing for my 2 years in IB. and it is intimidating at first. However, there is a lot of ways you can go about it. So IB business is a lot of theory, but you also need to know a lot of like formulas, and if you don't understand the logic behind it, there's no way you're getting more than a 5 in the exam. So what I'm doing right now is 4 things. First thing I started with is flashcards. There is flashcards for each unit and subunits in Save My Exams. I think there's flashcards in other platforms as well. However, Save My Exams worked the best for me. So you just search up Save My Exams, IB Business Management, SL or HL flashcards. Obviously, there's more for HL. However, for me, it takes me 30 minutes to do about 30 flashcards because they're easy. Sometimes less, depends on the topic. However, it's a very time efficient way to learn all the vocabulary and kind of like get yourself started with business in terms of like understanding the material. Of course, that's not all you're gonna do. However, this is a good place to start in order to know the vocabulary you're gonna need to use in your paper 1 and paper 2. So what you're gonna do after you find the flashcards is you're gonna like divide them by days, like days until the exam, in order for you to have time to do everything. Because if you're gonna learn like 5 subunits in one go, that's all gonna go to your short-term memory and you're gonna forget everything. I do maximum 2 subunits per day. That allows me to like kind of focus on that and then have time to like kind of revise it until tomorrow, and then tomorrow I learn a new thing. And yeah, that's it. Just practice the practice the flashcards, and I think you're gonna be set in terms of vocabulary, because flashcards are, for me at least, the easiest way to learn new vocabulary. If flashcards don't work for you, I recommend using Save My Exams for notes. I think some of the notes are locked. You have to pay for them. However, there's many other websites where you can actually find good notes to revise from instead of reading the whole book. Reading the whole book can be efficient. However, if you don't have enough time, I don't recommend, because you might learn certain topics really good. However, you're gonna be left behind on the last topics, and on the exam you can have exactly those. My second tip is, after you finish with Save My Exams, the flashcards, what you're gonna do is search up in Google all the analytical tools that are used in the IB business curriculum. Those are like the SMART goals, the ANSOF matrix, stuff like that, that you're gonna need to know. You can know the definition for all of these and what they're used for. However, if you don't know their structure, how they look, what like have like actual experience with them, you're not gonna understand them fully. And those are like a crucial part of the IB business curriculum. What I did is I wrote them all down in like a little packet of pages. So I have all of them like with examples and everything. And that should be like enough for you to like be familiar with them. You can also print them, but I like writing things down because that's how I'm gonna remember them better. And yeah, that's it. You're gonna have to find your own way to study. However, these are things that worked for me. Some people can learn visually by just looking at something. I have to actually like manually write them down. My third tip is getting familiar with a data booklet. So what I mean by that is for you to find exercises online, whether they're IB or not. I don't think it really matters. The whole point of this is for you to know what formula is used for what. Even though in business they're mostly like self-explanatory. However, to be on the safe side, I like to practice with them to see how they're used, what they're used for, how I can manipulate them, and stuff like that. This is very beneficial because you can earn easy points by calculating in business. If you master the formulas, that also guarantees that you're gonna understand that concept because of the mathematical reasoning behind it. At least that's how my brain works. And last, never forget about past papers. For every IB subject, past papers are very important as they show you how a test is gonna look like. And most of them have patterns. So like you're gonna see which units are most repeated, which units you need to pay more attention to, which units you need to revise, what kind of formulas, what kind of problems you're gonna have. Basically, everything you're gonna need to know about the IB exam that you're gonna have is in the past papers. So make sure to leave at least 2 weeks for past papers before the exam so that you can go through at least like 10 to 15 of them. That way you ensure that way you're gonna know approximately what grade you're gonna get. And if you're not satisfied with the grades you're getting on your past papers, that means you have to change something, you have to revise something. And that's the best way to know what to revise, is by doing past papers. I hope this helps you guys. This helped me self-study for the IB business exam, and I wish everyone good luck.
Hi everyone, if you want to learn how to get a 7 on your IB math exam, this is my personal study routine which has worked for me, and it doesn't matter if you're AI or AA, HL or SL, this is very universal and it has 3 main steps. The first step you're going to take is find the time to just take the book or books that you've been learning your material with throughout your school years, sit down and go through all of the chapters quickly, just scanning them through and seeing what they are. You're going to put these chapters into 4 different categories. You're going to put them into I don't know this at all, I'm kind of okay with this, I'm okay with this, and I know this 100%, I'm okay with it. Once you have them in these 4 categories, then you know which topics to start prioritizing and to start learning longer before your exams, and which ones to dedicate more time to when you're structuring your exam study schedule. This is going to be very useful for you to actually know which topics you've completely forgotten. For example, for me, it happened with the binomial theorem that I just did not remember anything, and I had to spend a few hours working on it and understanding it from the beginning, especially because it's without a calculator, and that can pop up on both of my exams, paper 1 and paper 2. While you're scanning these and organizing them into categories, you can also kind of read through the main formulas and see whether these are actually in your booklet in order for you to know whether it's something that you should pay more attention to and try to understand maybe the formula, why it is like that, or memorize it, depends on how you work. In order for when you get to the tests and it's not on the booklet, for you to know how to actually work through these problems. And another big thing is knowing how to do some certain problems on a calculator, but also off of it, since you won't have it for one of your papers. For a lot of the probability and statistics calculations, as well as integrals, you need to know how to solve some problems with your calculator and some without. So it's important to dedicate a lot of time on understanding how your calculator works, where everything is, and how to get the correct answer, because those are easy marks that you may lose if you're unsure of how to use it. You can go through YouTube tutorials, or also depending on what kind of books you use, there's some that actually explain it within the book and within the chapters. When you're scanning through these chapters, it's also really important to pay attention to the examples that are given, since they're graded by the IB mark scheme, in terms of it shows you what the steps you need to take to solve an actual equation or a problem, so that you can get the full marks that your question can award you. Now, once you've hopefully worked your way up to understanding the chapters that you didn't understand or forgot, you're gonna want to do the review sets. This doesn't have to be for all of your chapters, since it's very exhausting to go through a lot of them. However, again, the ones that you didn't know, as you're learning them, you should be able to do the review sets. Don't have to do the full ones, just choose one of them, since usually there's very repetitive types of questions. Just try to solve one of each question in order to see whether you've actually understood the material, or you're just reading through it and not actually knowing how to utilize it. Once you pass all of these categories and all of the chapters are at least at the I'm mostly comfortable to I'm comfortable with this topic, or if you just don't have the time, you can skip right to this step, and that's doing the question banks. You can find the question banks through a lot of different websites, or I would recommend sticking to maybe tests that your teacher has given you, because those are usually from past papers. In our case, they are. And just go ahead and work through these question banks in order for you to kind of get through the goal of doing these question banks is for you to kind of see if there's still any topics that you need to work on before you fully move on to past papers. As you're doing question banks, there's going to be like compound problems where you actually need to do, for example, the binomial theorem and then sequences and series. And you're going to realize that maybe you can do one part of it, but you can't do the other. And then you're going to have to go back and review that chapter once again, which is completely normal. And you shouldn't feel, even if this is a chapter that you thought was extremely comfortable for you, it's okay. And it's completely normal for you to go back and just review the things again. After you've had practice and you're completely sure that all of the topics are around the same level of knowledge, like there's no big discrepancy or gap between how well you know one topic and another, you should start moving on to past papers. And it's really important that you don't have any topics that you're completely kind of off guard when they pop up on your past papers, because then you won't be able to completely grade yourself and you might miss 10 marks or more because of this topic that you're not sure of. And you might grade yourself a 4 or a 5 and then completely feel unmotivated and like you don't know anything, when in reality, if you just spend a little bit more time and effort in doing that one topic, you would have gotten a 6 or 7. For some people, they just do past papers just to say they've done them. It's really important to do them under actual time conditions of your exam and to do it in a quiet room where you won't have any distractions. You just sit down and you do it. If you're doing a paper 1, then you do it without a calculator. If you do a paper 2, then you do it with a calculator, and no cheating, because at the end of the day, you're only cheating yourself out of an actual experience to see how you're doing. I would recommend, depending on the time you have until the exam, to do as many papers as you can and try to keep it like balanced between being a paper 1 and paper 2. And then after a few papers, go through them, go through grading them and the mark scheme, and be honest with yourself where you've lost points. If it's based on jumping to a different answer without showing your work, that's something you can easily work on in order to see how you've gotten that work and to get more points awarded, basically. I don't know if that made sense. And for the past papers, when you see that you've completely lost like a lot of marks on a certain question, it doesn't have to be all of them, but if it's most of them, or if you find yourself struggling with specific chapters, I would recommend writing down which chapter they're from. And if it's ones that you can't solve a problem from a specific chapter, that's fine. You might want to work through it just to see how it's solved. But if you repeatedly through all of your past papers see a specific chapter being an issue to you, then restart this progress, see all of the books, how they're solved, watch videos maybe on it if that's not enough for you, do the review set, and then go back to solving that same question until you're 100% sure that you can solve them. Also, before the actual exams, now Revision Dojo released a feature where they have basically prediction exams to predict the level of difficulty. If you have you don't have to have a subscription, because at least one of them is free. I don't know if it's the paper 1 or paper 2, honestly, but if you have a subscription to Revision Dojo, to Revision Village, anything like that, then do the predicted exams as well, because they can at least to some extent show you how much you know. I recommend doing the specimen papers because it shows you the difficulty you should expect on the exam. And again, it can show you if there's any topics that reveal themselves that need more work and understanding from your side. The biggest tip that I already mentioned, but is really overlooked throughout the whole studying for math process, is your calculator. You have to know when to use the calculator and how to do it. There's a lot of features that a lot of my classmates, for example, I've told them, oh, how do you solve this on the calculator? Like, do you know? And they're like, oh, I didn't even know you could. And it just helps so much to have, even if you know how to do it by your mind or like by writing, by hand, it helps to know that you can double check it with your calculator in order to see if you're on the right track, especially if you have time. And again, don't do past papers just to solve them, give yourself a grade, and then say, okay, I got a 6, that's perfect. Go through what you've made mistakes on, see if there's any patterns, and see what you can improve on for the next past paper you do. That's all for my advice, and if you're taking the exam this year, then I wish you good luck, and I hope that you do the best you can, and that you're well prepared, and that you're not stressed out about it, because it's just an exam at the end of the day. and it does not define who you are if you don't get a 6 or 7, even though a lot of people may make you feel like that. And if you're taking the exams next year, then it's way too early for you to be stressing about this. Enjoy your life while you can and start your math IA. Biggest tip. It's not as hard as everyone makes it. Yeah, bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Marin, and today I'm gonna talk about how to get a 7 in IB Physics, specifically for SL, but I'm also gonna touch upon HL since I was HL before I dropped it. It was a pretty smart decision. So firstly I would say that you need to understand the theory behind each concept, each subtopic. I would advise you to start with the space-time and motion, the first chapter. Go over the first 3 topics: kinematic forces and momentum and work energy and power, if you're SL, and continue with the HL if you're HL. And after that I would jump to nuclear and quantum physics, since it sounds complex, but it's not, since you only need to have some basic understanding of chemistry to connect with the atoms, nucleus, and all that stuff which you already know. And then you could go to fields. It's like an expansion of knowledge from the nuclear and quantum physics, and then you can either do B or C. It's up to you. So how would I actually understand the concepts? I would go on YouTube, IB Physics and the Mestle, and I would go to playlists. And since from 225 there's a new syllabus, you're gonna start watching the videos here from kinematics. But if you also want to understand the first like uncertainties and all the graphs, how to draw them, you can watch his videos about that. And all these videos are from the previous syllabus. They're also the same videos with these ones, but they're just grouped more nicely here. So the lab reports, internal assessments, if you want also to
5 to 6 months.
not this one, but here you have measuring uncertainty, organizing a table, and all that. So if you're also doing the internal assessment at this moment, just watch these videos. And then I would go to kinematics. What I would do is I would watch these videos, take notes after each video, and go in the book and read those subtopics, and take notes also from the book and solve the problems in the book. You have problems like 10 from each topic before you actually get to the review set at the end of the topic, so I would also do that. And I would also find the solutions for each exercise and recheck after I'm done with the problems. After watching all videos on full chapter, like after I finish with work energy and power, I would go to Revision Dojo or any other site that offers you free practice. For example, with Dojo I would go to the question bank for physics, and I would choose some of these. For example, if I'm done with kinematics, I would solve SL, and I would solve, for example, only paper 1, only the multiple choice. If you have also at all times I'll have the Revision Village physics booklet open next to me to check all the formulas, and also you don't need to remember any constants you're given, so less job for you. Also for the uncertainties, and all the formulas are right here. And I have to mention that for the last chapter, since I said that you can do nuclear and quantum physics as a second chapter, all of these formulas, even though in the book they're said they're in the SL section, they're actually HL formulas, so that's why it's easier. You only have 1, 2, 3 formulas for the entire section, which is way easier than other topics. What else do we have? So after I'm done with all the videos and solving the review set and with questions from additional sources, you can also check from Revision Village if you have it. Like for the full topic, here it's 7.1 from the old syllabus, and these are all multiple choice questions, I think. Yeah, and at the end there's paper 2 questions, and also paper 1B part questions that you can also do. And if you have a subscription at the Revision Village, you can also have the marksym. If not, you're just gonna do it like this. So what's the formula to get a 7? It's to understand the concepts, the theory behind each subtopic, and then to solve as many problems as you can. and how to actually prepare the last week before the exam or even 2 weeks before, I would go to IB Docs and see the past papers. So for this year you can't, since it's not the same syllabus, but you can still check them for to see what's the pattern, like what problems they're gonna give. You can predict. And for the next years, I would just check the one from 225 this year we're gonna get and solve those past papers. And after that, you understand the mark scheme and you just go on. And good luck. Hi guys, once again, I wanted to mention that the syllabus is changed now from 225 onwards, and I wanted to go over the changes and how this helps you now to achieve a 7. So instead of a usual paper 1, which is 45 minutes and 30 marks in total, so 1.5 minutes per mark, which was only multiple choice, now this is included in the, it's included in the paper 1A part, which is 25 marks, so 5 questions less, and you have 45 marks in total and 90 minutes, so 2 minutes per mark, which is better for you. You have more time to check the answers at the end and go over them. Part AB is now the part for the graphing units and uncertainties, which I mentioned, which you can watch the videos from Andy. And the changes in paper 2 is that it was 1 hour 15 minutes for 50 points, and now it's 1 hour 30 minutes for 50 points, so you have 15 minutes more. And the difference is that now you have a number of short response questions, focusing on a narrow area of the curriculum, doesn't matter, and then you have the long response ones compared to the previous paper 2, which already had A, B and more sections. Now the paper 2 has a few questions that are only A and B, and then you begin with the actual longer ones that also need graphing and that stuff. So you have 15 more minutes and it's a simplified version, so take your time and do it slowly. Don't go quickly to make a simple mistake. That's all. Good luck.
Thank you guys for watching. We hope that the advice given to you was helpful, and we hope that you guys can also get 7s on your IB exams.
Good luck.
Thumbnail.
Oh wait.